Hello, so I thought I'd make a video about guitars, about choosing an acoustic guitar, and specifically, but not only, kind of a more kind of high-end acoustic guitar, whatever that means, and more specifically, like Gibson versus Martin. Um, I bought this guitar. I'll just fit the camera. It's a Gibson Hummingbird, um, in sunburst. I think the most famous color for the Hummingbird is cherry red. And I bought this in 2022, and I had a big list of possible models that I wanted to try and that were part of the potentially guitar that I was going to buy, including Martins, Gibsons, Guilds, Taylors, mainly. And it was quite difficult actually to try all of those models. So that's one thing that I would say is a big tip. Just make sure you try the guitar that you're going to buy. That's very, very, very important. It's less important for an electric in terms of the sound, but it's still important for an electric, to be honest, because playability can vary like massively between two guitars of the same model in the same year and things like that. I One of the guitars that I originally wanted was a D28, a Martin D28, which is kind of the standard by which all acoustic dreadnoughts are judged. It's a very, very famous guitar, and it's a very, very good guitar. I've played them, and in terms of the sound and the feel of that guitar, I would say that I had in my head that would be the sound of a good quality acoustic guitar. And this guitar, this Gibson Hummingbird, does not sound like a Martin D28. So I kind of went out on a limb with this guitar. I think one of the reasons why I originally wanted one of these guitars, I've always wanted a Gibson J200, which is like a super jumbo acoustic. Gibson, obviously, it's very, very expensive. It's more expensive than this guitar. It's bigger. The sound's different. It's kind of boomier. And I don't think I would have been able to afford one. And there was also quite a difficulty kind of getting hold of them, because in 2022 it was more difficult to get hold of guitars because of the pandemic and things like that. I've always loved Gibson guitars, not only, but quite a big reason why is because of the aesthetics of them. I really like country music, and I'm a particular fan of Graham Parsons. Is my favorite singer of all time, and he played the J200 and Gibson acoustics, and the look of them. There's just something kind of really special about a Gibson acoustic, and really incredibly cool. So that was in my head. I was like, I need to try a Gibson acoustic and see what it's going to be like. Prior to trying this guitar, I had never tried a Gibson acoustic that I actually liked the sound of and the way it played, except for a J200. I tried the J200, a new J200, in a guitar shop in Liverpool, and I loved the sound of that. I still have a picture of myself playing it because it's my favourite acoustic guitar of all time. And I tried this, and I was like, I can't even remember why I came to be wanting to buy an acoustic guitar. But I tried it, and I think I was a little bit disappointed in it, to be honest, because Gibson acoustics do not sound like Martins. So if you come to a Gibson acoustic and think this is going to sound like a Martin, you're going to be disappointed, because it doesn't. And that doesn't mean it sounds bad or it sounds worse than a Martin. It just sounds different. And then despite being disappointed with it, I bought it anyway. I traded in I had a Lurive D50. Lurive guitars are really great guitars. They're actually probably higher quality in a way than Gibsons, and they're made in smaller numbers. They don't have the kind of brand recognition. And so I think when I bought it, I was a little bit disappointed. And then I also considered trading it in again for another Gibson, a Dove, and I didn't, and I'm glad that I didn't. And I'll go into why in a bit. So I've rambled on a little bit. I'm gonna hopefully give some advice on buying an acoustic guitar. I feel like it's quite a good lesson actually, because particularly if you're into guitars, you'll know that it's quite difficult to choose a guitar, and even when you've chosen, it doesn't mean just because you regret it that you've made the wrong choice. And also I'll play the guitar a little bit so you can hopefully hear what it sounds like a little bit, and I'll give you some of my kind of thoughts on acoustic guitars and Gibson versus Martin, and things like that. Yeah. So as I said, this is a Gibson Hummingbird. This guitar was played by Keith Richards from the Rolling Stones, and that was the kind of reference point. I think if you are interested in a Gibson Hummingbird, that's the reference point you should have in your head, because there are various kind of Rolling Stones songs which sound like this guitar. So for example, Angie, the opening riff from Angie sounds like this guitar. If you're looking for that sound, you want to buy a Gibson Hummingbird. There are also songs like the song Country Hunk from is it from Let It Bleed? That sounds like this guitar, as does Sweet Black Angel from Exile on Main Street. It sounds like this guitar. So I'll try and so you can see, well, hopefully you can, that this guitar sounds like that because it was played on that, whereas some other songs won't because they weren't played on this guitar. Like I mentioned, a D28 Blackbird was played on a D28, and a lot of kind of bluegrass and country music was played on a D28. And if you're looking for that sound, you're probably going to be disappointed by this guitar. And I was looking for that sound, I think, in my head, and I was a little bit disappointed when I first bought this guitar. And I also think that if I was to compare, just based on my experience, Gibson versus Martin guitars, I think Gibsons are more flawed instruments than Martins. This doesn't seem to stay in tune as well as I remember. I've owned Martins. My Martin did. It's definitely not as kind of boomy and as big sounding as a Martin D28. And I think a lot of people, when they think of a good sounding acoustic, are thinking of that sound, a kind of boomy sound. And you won't get that. This is more kind of chimey and bright. And that's one thing to consider when you're thinking about buying a guitar. I think one tip that I would say, if you want to buy an acoustic guitar, you need to try them. Which sounds ridiculous, but it isn't ridiculous, because it's really difficult. Like I had 10 acoustic guitars on my list for ones that I could buy, and they were never available in any of the shops that I went in, so I couldn't try them. And it would mean going around to 10 different shops and then trying to remember what they all sounded like. So it's quite difficult to try them, but wherever possible, you want to try a guitar. And if you really love an acoustic, even if you haven't tried all the others on your list, it's okay to buy that one because you love that guitar and you might not love the next one. I think also you need to know what you're looking for and what kind of sound you want, and kind of not be seduced, which is kind of contradicting what I've just said. Kind of not be seduced by the new sound, by a nice sound. So, for example, if you like country music and you try a guitar that's made for heavy metal, ridiculous example, and you love it, still don't buy it because you don't like heavy metal, and it's not going to be the tool that you're looking for. That's assuming that you make music as well. Another thing is, and this makes buying an acoustic kind of incredibly difficult, know that acoustics will change over time and will potentially get better in the way that they sound. So just because the sound is not a 10 out of 10 in the shop does not mean that it will not get there eventually. Which makes it really difficult to buy a guitar. I mean, my kind of whole go-to when playing acoustic guitars was to kind of just do chords and then hear the sound of the guitar. And this guitar is kind of really different to acoustic guitars that I was used to, and to the sound that I think that I had in my head. Another thing I would say when buying an acoustic guitar is to take somebody with you who can play it for you, so you can hear them play it. Because sometimes you can't tell how it sounds until you hear someone else play it. I love hearing people play my guitar because it gives me a new kind of understanding of the way the guitar sounds. What else is there? I think also be willing to like move outside of the list that you have, and to try different things. So I had quite a varied list, and I prefer kind of I like brands. So the brand Gibson, the brand Martin speaks to me more than say the brand Larive, because it's got more of a storied history and artists that I know and that I love have played those guitars, and that's part of. It's not just about the sound of an acoustic guitar or any instrument. It's about the history of it and the kind of aesthetics of it. I mean, I love Gibson acoustic guitars. If I was to pick an acoustic guitar probably purely on sound, I would probably choose a Martin. But it's not just about that. It's about the whole romance of the instrument too, which is really important, and it's part of the identity of musicians and things like that. Anything else about buying an acoustic guitar? Yeah, I mean, one last thing really before I play a little bit is, just because you don't like one example doesn't mean that you won't like the others, because acoustics are very much kind of dictated by the condition that they've been kept in, the way they've been played. So every acoustic guitar from Martin D28s will all sound very different because they're an organic thing that changes over time. That might not be the case as much with an electric guitar. It's much more about I think playability, but definitely with an acoustic, I think that this guitar, it's only been 2 years, has improved quite a lot, and I'm also discovering things that kind of hit this guitar. But like, for example, a finger pick. I don't really play with a finger pick very often. I mean, one of these. And this guitar really sounds great with one of them. So yeah, try different things as well. So if you are in the market for a Hummingbird or a Martin or a Gibson acoustic, I'm just going to play a little bit as well. The Hummingbird is short scale, so it's slightly shorter, and the neck is slightly shorter than a standard sized acoustic. So it's going to sound kind of brighter and things like that. Also, another thing is the wood. I forgot to mention, different woods different woods will sound different depending on the acoustic. So the Hummingbird is made out of mahogany. The D28, as far as I'm aware, is made out of rosewood. The J200 is not made out of either of those woods, I don't think. I can't remember the wood that it's made out of. But all of those things will make the guitar sound differently. And depending on whether you're looking for a more value acoustic or a higher end one, you're thinking about, is it solid back and sides and things like that, and they do have an impact. But yeah, so I'm just gonna play a little bit. I don't know whether this will like affect kind of whether it copyright and stuff like that. So I might just play, like, make stuff up. So this with a finger pick. Greatly tuned there. you like, to show the guitar sound. I forgot how to play this song I was going to play. Bit of a good note there. So not perfect playing by any means, but just to give you an idea what the guitar sounds like. If you like the channel, please subscribe. Thanks very much for watching. Bye bye.